So it's time for another ranking video. Yes, you're probably thinking, what's he going to come up with this time? Well, this is the 2011 top 10 of mine. Now, I've noticed the further I go towards current music, the more difficult it is to do this. Why? Because generally speaking, I haven't played and listened to these albums as much as some of my predecessors. First point, these selections are to be qualified by the fact that I haven't listened to them that much. Okay, so not an expert, but they're just based on a sort of gut feeling, really. So I'm going to start off with some honourable mentions for 2011. And this one I listened to a few weeks ago for the first time, only 11 years late. Slave Ambient, The War on Drugs. I found it very atmospheric, a bit used to style with its anthem rock, but they mixed the songs with the others that have a sort of psychedelic feel to them. Adam Grunziel at the helm, I hope the pronunciation is correct there. He's become really on this album the leader after Kurt Weill left and went solo. But it's certainly worth a listen. Slave Ambient by The War on Drugs. Honourable mentions have something in common. They're all by young female artists from the UK and the United States. First, Follow Me Down by Sarah Jarosz. This girl is magical. Well, she was in 2011, and her new material is still great. It's a folk acoustic country mix that doesn't really paint the complete picture. Great songs, beautiful presentation. She plays mandolin, banjo, and acoustic. She's got a beautiful voice, and you really must check her out. It sounds a little bit sort of deep south in places, but it's far more than that. Next female artist, this young woman comes from the south of England in the UK, and both these girls were under 20, I believe, or around about 20 years of age. This one is Laura Marlin's A Creature I Don't Know. And once again, it's got a sort of folk feel to it. I hear quite a lot of Joni Mitchell in here because the woman doesn't just plod the acoustic strings. She's extremely creative. The Beast is a great example, a bit of a rain-lashed monster with descending chord sequences. Beast, it's got a Rosemary Babies type of feel to it, with lyrics such as this: tonight I choose the beats, tonight he lies with me. And then there's a beautiful track called Night After Now, which got some classic folksy picking, but it allows her voice to revel in its own beauty. And then the third, Floriette by Mara Carlisle. Very inventive and idiosyncratic collection of songs here, merging elements of classical jazz and something called liturgical music. I got this from a critic. There's pop in there and even some R&B, and it's very unique as a whole, with some fascinating sound and gorgeous vocals. Mentions keep coming. Seeds We Sow. This was released by Lindsey Buckingham. Of course, it's pop music, but it's got that magical guitar work. Described as the best indie album around at the time. Standout track is In Our Own Time. And it's got cascading guitar work. The album mixes storming rock with palatable ballads. And then there's Helplessness Blues by Fleet Foxes. I've actually reviewed this on my channel extensively, but here we've got genre of folk rock with elements of chamber music. It's a sophomore release, highly accomplished with Robin Pecknold at the helm. And then moving on, a 3 CD set with a DVD called Live at the BBC by Richard Thompson. 40 years of his appearances on the BBC, both radio and on TV, and includes songs with his ex-wife Linda and with his own band. Absolutely fantastic. And then finally, Build a Rocket Boys by Elbow. I've also got a full review of this on my channel. It's a very, very creative rock music that's very palatable but difficult to get into. But once you do, you get your rewards. So those are the honourable mentions. Changed the top 10 order as close as last week after listening to a number of these albums again. So in at 10 is The King of Limbs. It's the 8th studio album by Radiohead. It was released initially as a download, but it's a paltry 37 minutes really. Initially I found this pretty boring after the previous album, which I loved, in Rainbows. But slowly the contents got under my skin. Highlights, Bloom with its sequence of drum loops and pealing horns that create a very rhythmic tangle. Morning Mr. Magpie with guitar shapes and chattering, fizzing percussion works beautifully. And then there's Feral with Tom York's contorted voice into a reverb-infused style that melds with the drum patterns. Best listened to in a quiet surroundings, I think, so that you can immerse yourself in the wondrous electronic amalgam. Sorry about this. We're in extreme humidity and heat here, and even though I've got the aircon on, it's still very uncomfortable. For number 9 is Strange Mercy by St. Vincent. This is the creation of course one Annie Clark, and it's her third offering. She apparently decided that she wanted to experience loneliness for her creative period, and that's what she did. She wanted to experiment and find out how she would react in constructing an album of songs whilst experiencing loneliness. There's a great focus on luxurious strings and woodwinds, and they float above what could be described as wobbly keyboards and ugly distorted guitars. I learn and appreciate more about this album every time I listen to it. 2 tracks to highlight: Neutered Fruit, which is a confrontational jazz rock piece with a dance pop beat, and Hysterical Strength, which has that dance pop beat, but is extremely frantic. Very good music. Okay, and that's Annie Clark's St. Vincent's, which is my selection at 8. It's called Dirty Jeans and Mudslide Hymns, and it's by John Hyatt. He's an American musician and songwriter and singer. His career emerged in 1974 when he released his debut, Hanging Around the Observatory. The music is heartland rock, blues rock, folk rock and country. I have grown to love this artist over the years and have a number of his albums. And this one in 2011 really caught my ear. It's got some sort of a mixture of Americana on there as well. He plays guitar, piano and keyboards and sings. Very strong material with a sort of flinty vocal style. And he's released over 20 studio albums, would you believe. This effort is a bit more polished and ambitious than his previous work, but the Indiana-born singer-songwriter has been releasing albums, as I say, since '74, and is become very prolific once we got into the new millennium. So that's my take on his 7th studio album released since 2000 and his 20th overall. It's a terrific listen, and he adds in bits of wit, and the rhythm and blues and soul is superb, plus the country twang and a little bit of Tex-Mex thrown in. Offering at 7, It's So Beautiful, So What by Paul Simon, and it's very much a return to his sound of standard Afro-influenced pop. Dazzling Blue is by far the best song on here for me, a gorgeous love song about his wife. And there's also a blues stomp with Getting Ready for Christmas Day, which I love. And The Afterlife and Questions for the Angels takes us on that vague journey with regard to what happens when one passes. And Love and Blessings is another excellent song on here. The album's anchored in polyrhythms and chattering guitars and digital loops, plus a handful of delicate acoustic numbers. I've also done a longer review for this if you're interested, and there will be a link in the description. Definitely charmed me, this album, and it really relaxes you throughout. This is The Whole Love by Wilco. And how can I describe this one? Spinning electric guitar crescendos plus deaf acoustic numbers would probably sum it up. On this particular album, the guitarist Niels Klein was much more to the front in terms of his contribution, and I really like this man. He's got a spectacular guitar style, which is pretty impressive. R is a terrific, powerful opener to this, and Klein really burns the fretboard with some nifty power playing. Tweedy's writing, of course, and strident vocals are strong throughout this collection of songs. Country alternative roots is how we would describe the genre, and there's bags of creativity added into the tracks. So that's the whole album by Wilco. My 5th selection is Junk of the Heart by the British indie band The Kooks. It's their 3rd offering, and on this one they've added some string arrangements to add to their bouncy indie pop style, and I loved it right from the first cut. Happy. Taking Pictures of You is a strong song with full orchestral treatment, but the Kooks always retain an ambient pop sound which works for me. We also hear a touch of reggae beats, some subtle synths and new wave melodies, and singer Luke Pritchard's vocal tones fit perfectly with the sound. So that's the Kooks. Or is Pull Up Some Dirt and Sit Down by Ry Cooder. Those of you who are familiar with my channel and these best of top 10s will know that Cooder appears virtually upon every release. And here he once again delivers some numerous desperate, broken-blooded and disenfranchised folk that are left to rot by those who put greed before humanity. The songs individually are studies in blues, country, dust bowl, folk and boogie, and they collectively add up to a powerful state of the nation address. Tracks then, Jesse James contemplating returning from heaven to visit is one song. Some Old West Justice on Wall Street in the Tennessee waltzing El Corrado del Jesse James. It's absolutely brilliant. And the pleasures of an uncomplicated life are extolled in the Tex-Mex ballad Simple Tools. I particularly also like Dirty Chateau, which is enchanting as a Tex-Mex ballad. And you get Rise singing in Spanish here, and there's some exquisite harmonies to boot. And altogether, a great collection from Rye. Go to 3, and it's 6 years on from her awesome release, Ariel. It's quite a contrast to that record, I think, and it sort of has a sort of more eeriness to it, which is representative of the winter. Just note the title there. That theme dominates. Piano vocal duet masterpiece is how one would describe Misty, which is one of the standout tracks here. There's the standout imagery of love with a snowman, no less, and Elton John chips in with some added gentle vocals on Snowed In on Wheeler Street, another excellent song. And then there's the finale, Among Angels, which is a torch song for a friend in need, with a stunning lyric. I can see angels standing round you. They shimmer like mirrors in summer, but you don't know it. Gives you a sort of a brief glimpse of what we're looking at with this genius. The piano sets that magical mood throughout. It's somewhat dark, but a wonderful resonating piece of work. At number 2 is Angles by the New York alt-rock band The Strokes. This was her 4th album, 5 years on from their 3rd. 5-piece album, got an energy-filled funk punk razor sharp sound, and on 2 kinds of happiness, which is a standout. You hear this vividly. One critic described the album as early U2 and Talking Heads on a seesaw, with the National acting as a fulcrum. Not sure about that, but it's certainly very impressive, and became my favourite album by this band. A terrifically pounding alt-rock. Another highlight is Love Is Simple in the Moonlight, and it takes in some cool keyboards and hits 88 miles an hour. Very speedy guitar work here. And Casablancas, the vocalist, is very impressive up front. So there we are, Angles by The Strokes, and it's at number 2. Number 1 then for 2011 is An Appointment with Mr. Yates by the Waterboys. I've done a review, and a very long review on this album, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much here, just to say it was inspired, the album, by the poet W.B. Yeats, who is certainly has a big fan in Mike Scott, who basically is the founder and creator in the Waterboys. This is absolutely brilliant. I can't really describe it in too much detail without referring to my other review, but the Waterboys mix that sort of big band sound with Celtic roots type songs, which have a sort of imagery from the past and very much linked in with myth and rituals. And Scott does an amazing job, and he's got some great musicians with him. A particular reference to Steve Wickham, who brings in all the violin sounds to the mix. This is one hell of an album, by far their best as far as I'm concerned, and I've got a link down if you want to know more about this album in my review, which is a lengthy affair, goes through it track by track with a lot of references to the lyric content and some interpretation, which is quite complex and based very much on history and Irish, Celtic myth and ritual. Okay, that's my lot. That's 2011. Bit of a shoddy review, this one, I think, because I'm trying not to be too lengthy. But we will be back with 2012 in a very, very short period. I must try and get up to date by the end of the year.